I'm not on? Can you hear me? They can hear me. I know. It's right here. Oops, I lost
You can clip it on your glasses, maybe.
it.
I don't think anybody's ever done that before.
How's that? Is that any better?
Maybe bring it up a little
I
higher,
may have to
Pat.
yell.
Pat, you can bring it up a little higher, maybe.
I have nothing to clip it to but my skin.
No, I mean a little higher on your collar.
Okay. Is that any better? Okay.
Okay, as long as they can hear us.
Media Board of Adjustment will come to order. And first we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we need roll call.
Roll call.
Chairwoman Pat Rogers,
Here.
Vice Chairman Bill Colombo,
Here?
Member Bob Reed, Member Sherry Scherer,
Here.
Member Joseph Parisi.
Okay. Now I need someone to make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from December 2nd, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes passed.
Any
And
announcements?
Any announcements that we need to know?
Mr. City Manager, you have anything to throw in here? Any announcements, Paige? Or City Attorney? Sorry. Okay. I don't have any announcements.
Anybody
The
else?
weather's
have any-
nice, I could announce that.
Okay, I guess our first order of business is reorganization because we're starting a new fiscal year. So we need a nomination for,
I will nominate
Chairman?
Pat Rogers to remain as chairwoman of our board.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And her too.
Okay, now we need a nomination for vice chair.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, that took a long time, didn't it?
Okay. I understand that there is an addition to our agenda.
Yes, ma'am. So we have some extra information, some certified letters that went out that is part of your packet now. It's section E5.
Like I know where that is.
Do you want to accept it into the record?
Yes. Do we need a motion for that?
What is it?
Okay.
It's the certified letters that went out. It's a copy of our certified.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I
So
understand.
Okay.
part of what you have now, except it's got some extra information in it.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we need a motion to
We need a
accept it.
motion and a
I
second.
move to accept the additional material.
I
Do we have a
second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, good, more paper. I cut this up and use it in scrap paper
Thank
later.
you.
Good Lord.
Killed 3 trees.
Yeah, trees are screaming everywhere.
Okay. We are here tonight for the special exception request by Unity Truth Center. And at this time, everyone who is going to speak tonight, would you stand and be sworn in?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give is at this hearing is the truth? Thank you.
Now, everyone that comes up to speak I'd like you to give your name and address for the record. Okay. So, Ms. Wilhite, would you like to start us?
You want staff to start?
Or staff? Okay.
Jim, what's the procedure here?
It's up to the applicant, generally staff will go first.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Is this on?
I can hear you. Can they hear you is the question.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Tammy Vrana with Vrana Consulting at 260 Tucker Street, Safety Harbor. I'm an urban planner, and I serve as the city staff for planning. Tonight, as was mentioned, this is a special exception request in the R2 two-family residential zoning district to allow a,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. I'm seeing spots now.
and all of this information is in your packet, so, oh, and am I gonna be able to read now? So, I probably will.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm known for my immaturity.
Okay. So the subject property is located at 58, oh, go to the next one, please, I'm sorry. The subject site property is located at 5844 Pine Hill Road. It has approximately 11.03 acres, plus or minus, and as mentioned, it is owned by the Unity Truth Center Incorporated. The applicant is Unity Truth Center for this special exception, and the agent is Attorney Barbara Wilhite, who is here to provide more information as needed. So, let's see, the request is to allow the school use, public or private. That would be in the R2 two-family zoning district, which is provided for in section 127.49 C7 to allow a school use. The requested enrollment for this school is 270 students. That would be the base level, up to a maximum of 456 students. That's the request. Next, please. So we looked at the context for the site, and you can see it's located there in the middle with the R2 label for the zoning district. And surrounding the site is a combination of different residential and commercial and planned unit development zoning districts, and you have a little bit of agriculture down to the bottom, which is actually a wetland. Go with the next one, please. So as part of a special exception request, we are required to look at compatibility criteria in the city's land development code, and there are 18 different sections that we looked at, and those are analyzed within your packet. So we found that for the most part, the request is consistent with the criteria, but there were a couple of instances specifically related to the potential for traffic impacts on the site that we wanted to go a little bit further and support this special exception use with some conditions of approval. So go to the next one, please. So we looked at the trip generation rates by different land use types within, just for comparison. We looked at the private school K through 12, which is what the school is proposed to be at this point, although it would have the opportunity to be public or private. Under the International Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, you can see that the daily generation rate is 2.48 trips for the number of students that would be at a private school, as compared to a church on a weekday, which would have a much higher rate at 6.95, but actually that's related to square footage, so it's really not apples to oranges. And then daycare, for comparison, if there were students measured, it's 4.09 as a daily rate. Now for schools, the peak time of the day is in the morning, because people are dropping off more in a compressed amount of time than they would in the afternoon, which tends to be more staggered. So if we usually look at the early morning hours of 7 to 9 for the maximum trip generation impacts on local roads. So the next one, please. So what we did was we took the private school ITE code, and we looked at it under two scenarios. One would be the 270 students, which is the base amount, and then the 456 student maximum. And we could see that under the 270 students, you would get around 670 estimated trips per day, as compared to just a little over 1,000 for the 456 students. And in the AM period, that 270 students would generate 536 trips, and that includes students with their parents, of course, because all of these students would be driving in. It is anticipated that the students would not be walking or biking to school. And then it would also include any of the staff, everybody who makes the operation sing during the day. So, and then in comparison, almost double of what you would see for the 456 student maximum. So, please go to the next one. So you can see that Pine Hill Road and the surrounding road network or street network is predominantly two-lane facilities. So, there could be the potential for backups to occur if there were stacking problems on the site in the morning when parents are dropping off their students. Now, the school has been operating here for the prior school for a long period of time, and although the data that we have is very anecdotal in a lot of cases, there wasn't a lot of documentation as to when the school actually started there and how many students were there at any particular time. But this particular school, the one that just vacated the premises, did have that maximum level of students at one point, and then the latest numbers were at the 270 basis. Now, we did have some reports from the chief of police that during the years there had been some congestion periodically on Pine Hill Road. So there is that potential, but now that this is going to be solely a school use, there will no longer be a church use associated with this site. The new owners would look at what the queuing, the stacking and circulation needs would be on that site, and perhaps if those were modified in some manner, they could eliminate any potential for congestion on Pine Hill Road. I did go out. We do not have traffic data. There isn't data that's collected for Pine Hill Road because it is just a local street per the city and the county's functional classification maps of roadways. So there wasn't that data, but I did go out in the morning around a little bit before 8 o'clock until about 8:30, and on a regular school type day, and there didn't seem to be any issues. And granted, there's no school there now, but it seemed to be pretty free-flowing. I would say it was a level of service A, which is the best that you could get on Pine Hill Road. So that's, again, not a scientific count, but just an observation as to what might go on out there.
Could I ask a question here, please?
Certainly.
That one property up there, isn't there a county school bus parking just down the road from it?
Yes,
Oh, on Pine Hill Road?
On Pine Hill?
To the
Yes.
east?
there is a bus
Yeah,
barn.
to the east. And a ton of them buses come down Pine Hill Road in front of the subject property.
Okay. Do you,
Just pointing out that
Okay.
there's a lot of school buses rolling
so
from
they're
the
kind of
county
dispersed from that?
coming down there.
Okay.
Yeah, just
That's
a
good to
point.
know. And one
Right.
of the, and as we'll get into with the conditions, the applicant has offered to, if they wanted to increase above the 270 student maximum, that they would provide a traffic study, and so those sorts of things would be included in the analysis by an actual traffic engineer, which I am not, so I'm just an urban planner. So they would actually bring in real talent to do a traffic analysis. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is just a view looking east on Pine Hill Road. And then we'll go to the next. And this is, you can see the subject there to the left. This is looking west. And then one more, let's see what that one, and these are just different views of the subject there. You see there the sign. The one on the bottom left is the actual the entryway. So you can see where the car is kind of, coming in from the right, coming in from the left.
That's the exit.
That's the egress?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It's currently, look at the way the stop sign's facing.
okay. Well, I thought I stood right in front of the entrance. But anyway, I stand corrected, so that's the egress. So, okay, let's go to the next one. So what we did was we came up with 9 different conditions of approval for this special exception. And these are, of course, a summary. There's more detail that's provided in your packet. But just a summary, this project must, or this property must comply with all applicable city codes, of course. That the student enrollment shall not exceed 270 students until such time as there is a traffic circulation plan that is submitted and approved by the city. If there are any negative off-site traffic impacts after this school opens with the 270 students, then those problems will need to be corrected by the owner of, or the operator of the site as approved by the city. There would remain 2 functional driveways as exist today for ingress and egress. A clear slight triangle at the egress point must be maintained, and I believe that there is some vegetation that's growing that's sort of blocking the views of making that left or right-hand turn, so that would be something easily resolved. Internal to the site, any access lanes or internal circulation widths or clearance from other buildings or vertical structures need to be at least a minimum of 15 feet to allow emergency vehicles to respond if needed. If there's exterior lighting on the site, it needs to be harmonious with the existing residential uses within the area, so nothing that just shines directly into an adjacent property, which is called light trespass. On an annual basis, we're asking that the owner-operator provide evidence that life safety requirements have been met and what the projected or permitted school enrollment will be for that particular year. And then finally, if the school, if the owner-operator decides that they want to have a public school on the site, there are special requirements of the Pasco County School District that would need to be followed, and this is just an acknowledgement of that. I'm sure that they're very much aware of what those requirements are. Okay, let's go to the next. So with that, based on the staff analysis in your report, we recommend approval of the request for special exception, subject to the conditions, finding that the request is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and the requirements of the Land Development Code. And with that, I will answer any questions that I'm able to, and that reminder, we also have the applicant here tonight, or the agent, to also answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I have a couple of statements, a couple of thoughts, if you will. The adequate ingress and egress from the property. Looking at the picture eastbound, there is the sign that's on the property, says who it is, what it is, whatever. I'm concerned that over a period of time, that the telephone pole that's in the way is going to have to be moved to allow for, if you will, an off-ramp from the street.
Deceleration lane.
Yeah, to widen that.
Stacking lane.
Yeah, to widen that lane out, because as people pull in, they're not going to stop, obviously won't stop right at the beginning, but with 200 some students, therefore you might figure 200 some cars, you're going to have the possibility of backing them up into the street, even if you drive them all the way around the building. I've been there several times, to drive it all the way around a building and let children out wherever and then come back out. That's one concern. Second concern is when looking at the egress point, it's relatively wide, and like you say, the bushes and vegetation has to be trimmed back for anybody making a left. But I think that should be, if you will, striped or delineated into 2 lanes right there at the mouth of it. And so that the people who are wanting to make a left may be stopped by traffic coming from west, or from east to west, but people wanting to make a right won't have a problem. But if people who are wanting to make this left pull up in the middle or to the right-hand side, you just stop the whole process. The only other thing that I saw, and I'm curious as to how many parking areas there are on the property, because realistically speaking, with the number of teachers that you'll need and the number of staff that you'll need, I didn't find anywhere that was delineated on hard surface, because we do have various and sundry rules within the city about what you can park where, how many cars you can park on the grass. As if, for instance, we've got the entrance and the egress point of that, the ingress point road, just to the right of it after you enter, there's parking stops, but they're all in the grass. And I'm curious if that's going to stay that way. That's going to end up as a mud hole for, come spring. I think that's about all I've got.
Okay, we'll wait for the applicant to tell us about the parking arrangement. Does anybody else have a question for me before I sit down and I can come back up? So, okay, thank you.
Good evening. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, Florida, obviously, for the applicant. So this location has history. It's a little different than a lot of times we see a new special exception coming forward, or a special exception for a new use. This property has been used for this exact use, most recently by Learning Lodge. And so there's already history of the school operating. The condition that staff is recommending is that we can't have any of our traffic stacking off onto the roadway. We'll have to have internal queuing and protocols set up with regard to staggering of students and those types of things, because the condition is we can't be using the road for our students and their parents, and then other people can't use the road. So we understand that. We feel very comfortable with that, this operating at a maximum level of 270, which is what Learning Lodge operated at last year. And again, we're operating less because of COVID. We went with the lower number, the most conservative number of the least amount of students that Learning Lodge had. They probably had more students, we understand, than 270. But we're staying with the 270, and we know that we cannot be queuing onto the road. We'll be able to do a lot of different things on site. It's a very large piece of property at 11 acres. It has a lot of impervious, already pavement down. And between that and how they operate the school, we'll be very successful in having a school that fits very nicely into your community, bringing back another school to the city, and using a building that's perfectly set up for a school. That's why it's been used 4 times as a school. So I think that's a very good use to have that somebody else come in and want to use the property as a school, so it doesn't stay vacant. So I think it's a win-win for both my client, who wants to buy and wants to locate their new business, the school here in your city, as well as recognizing that we do have to be very concerned about the traffic. And it happens with every school. I know when I used to drive my kids to school every year, at the beginning of the year, there was always a couple days where it took to get everybody going in the right direction. But it happens. Everybody works together. When I met with your staff regarding, we met actually with the staff and talked about the use, and the police chief did say, well, on a couple occasions, that there were, like any other school, there were some issues, but he said they were always addressed and didn't believe that we would have any issue addressing them if any issues came up with our school. So I think the only other question that I don't have the answer to is just parking. So I know, I'm sure my client has looked closely at the parking and knows what her staffing is going to be. So I'm going to ask her to come up and introduce herself to you, because she wants to join your city, and have her explain what she knows about the parking. Thank you.
Good evening, Margarita Jimenez, 901 Country Club Prado, Coral Gables, Florida. I've looked at the parking. There's 11 acres on the property. So eventually I wanted to make the put the parking more efficient than what it is right now. But I don't have that yet because I don't have an architect, I don't have the property yet of all the things I want to do to it. So I can tell you, yes, the parking needs help. But we have more than enough space to be able to park. The staff, the ratio's usually 1 to 18 for student to teacher, so we don't need that much parking, and I really don't have any students right now to worry about staffing, but eventually when we get there, we will hire someone to do that for us. I don't know if there's any other questions?
So currently, how many parking spaces are on the property?
God, that's a good question. I didn't really count them. I'm assuming there's about 20 or 30, but then there's another side where there were also parking there. But they have like what he called the little bumpers on the front, but I can't tell you how many there are, honestly.
Do you happen to know right now how many cars you can have in queue for pickup and drop off?
Well, what I did was when the Learning Lodge was there, I was watching how they would do it. Part of the problem that they had on that street is that they were blocking areas where they could have had several lanes, and they also should have staggered their pickup and drop-off, which that makes a big difference because you don't want your big ones mingling with your little ones. So there was a way that you could do it 3 ways, and you would not even have to go into the street. There wasn't really a lot of traffic even considering that. So I stood there a couple of times just to see the exit, because that's one of my pet peeves at my other school. I actually do the pickup and drop off and stand there and we make sure the kids are ready to go so we have that flow. So to give you an idea, in our school, we do our pickup and drop off and we have more students and we do it in about 20 minutes max. So we already got it down packed. I mean, it's walkie-talkies, everybody's on board, all staff is available during pickup and drop-off.
Is there also going to be buses involved in this?
I don't have buses in the school that I'm in. It's all private. If parents want to use a private provider, yes, but we don't have buses, no.
My personal experience with the previous school there, I was stuck in their traffic jam. One of the impatient parents was headed west, made a left turn into the school, but they couldn't go in because the parking, the road driveway was full. So they stopped and blocked both east and westbound traffic and just sat there.
Okay, because when I was there, honestly, I thought that they could have done better in that aspect because they have the space and they were blocking certain things with cones and gates, and I didn't understand why they were doing that when they had all that open space. So if you do that and you stagger also in the sense that your first graders don't go out at the same time as your fifth graders, that makes a difference in traffic also.
And will you have people out directing traffic
Correct.
on those?
Right.
So you wouldn't have somebody that
Correct.
would come and block?
Yeah, usually at the other school I have security on both sides of the exit. And staff itself goes outside. We stop everything we're doing and staff is outside with us. So we can expedite, because you know how kids are, they want to talk and they want to pick up their stuff. So we start preparing 10 minutes prior to every group that's coming out, so we know exactly. And we know the parents in my school, we know the parents that are always there at that same time. So those students are already in line to go. So we even have that. We have hang tags, the car tags, so we see the name, so it's not even you have to get off. It's a car line that goes.
I have another thing with the school. I was at a 4-hour school board meeting this morning. Our school bus drivers are running 4 routes a day, and they are working in all hours. It would be nice to coordinate with them so that you could kind of come in between when they're going to be up and down Pine Hill.
Yeah, that's fine, and we do that now in the city that I'm in. I mean, we try to figure out the other schools around us too,
Yeah,
to make sure that we're not on the same schedule.
Yeah, the bus barn is about 3 or 4 blocks.
On the left,
east
I
of
saw
you.
it, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I saw the park, yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm curious,
I'm curious, the subject property currently operating is the Unity Church. This school is being operated by the Unity Church or a different entity?
It will be a different entity.
Okay, and assumedly, again, this is a not-for-profit entity?
No, it's for-profit
It's a
entity.
for-profit.
Mhm.
So I would ask the city attorney, how does that affect the taxable nature of that particular piece of property? No, this doesn't have much to do with you, but it's a curiosity to me.
Schools do not pay taxes,
Schools,
private or
a
public.
private or public school.
Or university or whatever, no.
Okay, that's,
I don't think they're paying, I don't know if they're paying taxes now, because
No,
it's been
they're
operated as a
not.
school.
No, they're
I
not.
don't
Neither
think
do
they
I,
are.
no.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, you know, up
Yeah,
until
the
now,
church wouldn't have
it's
either,
been a
so we haven't
church,
been
and
getting
churches are
taxes, yeah.
non-taxable. I didn't
Right.
necessarily know that for-profit, potentially for-profit schools were taxable entities.
Not for-profit or non-profit.
Okay.
All schools are non-taxable.
Good to know. Okay. That's why I asked him.
Any other questions?
No?
Anyone from the public have anything else to say?
Thank you.
Whichever wants to go first. Yeah, just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Janet Applefield. I live at 2794 Forest View Drive in Clearwater, Florida. However, I am a landowner with my family with a property right across the street from the church at Apple Six Commercial Center. I have a couple of issues. Your point was well taken. In the spring, the front of that church is completely flooded. So as a substitute parking area, that's a problem. We have had, talking about parking, we have had numerous times with the prior school that was there where parents parked in our parking lot and walked across the street. That potentially is a problem, especially when they're walking back across the street with their children, if they're not paying attention. Yes, you are correct. The traffic does back up numerous times. We're running a commercial business, you know, trying to have our tenants be able to get in and out. They can't sometimes. There's also a brand new initiative, I'll say, by Duke Energy. They're trying to take down all of the power lines along Pine Hill, so I don't know how that's going to fit into their agenda, because they've approached us about taking the power lines down. There is also a nursing home right next to us. If there is ever an emergency and you've got the street blocked off because of traffic, that's potentially a problem. I'm not speaking for them, but just making a comment. And one thing that nobody has addressed is what is going to be the environmental impact for all of Pine Hill, whether it's water, sewer. Now that, you know, you're going to start, the school supposedly is going to start with the same amount of students as they had before, but if you double or triple it, what's the impact going to be? We have that retention pond right next to our property, so I don't know. They also didn't mention, are they going to add ball fields or tennis courts or have after-school programs that are going to have things in the evening? So these are all extra concerns beside just parking. So just want to bring it to the board's attention, some other things to consider with us as neighbors. Sir.
In conjunction with your thought on parking and the fact that they're talking about taking the power lines down, I'd like to thank Duke Energy for taking all of the power lines down. Tomorrow's too soon. You know, I've been there burning down palm trees in front of my house with the
Well,
power
they're
lines.
they're putting them underground is
Yeah,
the thought.
thank you. Well, if they do that, then the space between the ingress and the egress on that road, the sign can be moved, that whole area can be can be covered in a culvert done, covered over, and used as an entrance area. That's what like I said, I've been on the property 4 or 5 times, and my thought would be if that telephone pole or power pole wasn't there, if everything was underground, then you could culvert that whole area, pave over part of it, and be able to use it as an off-ramp.
It's my understanding that they're only taking the poles down on one side of the street, not on both. So that would be something to check with Duke Energy about,
Yeah, I
how,
don't-
how they're gonna be doing,
Like I
how they're
said,
gonna be
that
doing
was,
that.
that was my only thought on the whole thing, but yeah,
Sure.
I see where it floods.
Right, it definitely floods, and there's definitely traffic concerns for, the neighbors. So, thank you all for, listening and considering.
In regards to that, my thought on it was that big expanse of grass that's in front of the main building, there's room for a retention pond in there, because it is, it's a terrible flooding area when we have heavy rains. And that, this is Florida, it rains a lot. Anyone else want to talk?
Just wait and make sure nobody else wants. Are you all set? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So one of the things that is different here is that the prior operators operated the school without coming to the city. My client probably could have done that as well. Just bought the property, opened the door, turned the lights, and started school like the prior four. That's not how she does business. It was very important to her to come into the city and get the proper approval, and it can be conditioned. Didn't have any conditions on the prior uses because they didn't come through this process. So we certainly can have a condition that there's no off-site parking, to address conditions that are enforceable, just like we can't queue in the street. So we're going to be held to a different standard because we're going to be conditioned through this process. So the other thing is as my client has 11 acres, as she would like to eventually have plans to maybe expand the school or add things to the property, that all goes through a process that engineers review it, required to have stormwater, it's required to have all those things. So all these issues will get addressed, one through the conditioning of the special exception, and then through the process of site plan review. If she wants to add parking spots, add pervious parking, she'll have to go through a site plan review, have the environmental looked at, have the drainage looked at, and so that process will occur.
Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, bring it back for comments to the board. Ms. Shera?
I don't really have a problem with it if there's some sort of an exception to absolutely no cars parking on the street. People out there to direct traffic so that they don't block anything, and absolutely no use in anybody else's property to drop the kids off. That's bad to walk across that street. It's 2 lanes. So. I mean, we all have water issues in this city, so just be aware you're going to have water issues, and it's something that will have to be taken care of. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any real issues here. If we have drainage issues on that street, are they the result of the subject property or just drainage issues on that street?
My observation is that the property itself is low, and it just ponds right in front of the building.
But as far as water on the street itself?
No, on their driveways, but not on Pine Hill.
And I would assume that there would be water farther back, as you get farther deeper into the property, probably lower down.
Well, and, I mean, the subject property is a pretty good hunting property. There's no doubt about that. My basic issue, not issue, but comments are based on, the applicant's responsibility for what they are responsible for and what they are not.
I just would like to see the motion brought in that right now they're limited to 270 students, but if they increase it, that they, or want to increase it, that they supply the traffic study.
Could I Chairman, could I comment on that? If you were going to make a motion to approve, it would be subject to the staff's conditions, and that is one of staff's conditions. They've listed there beginning on page 6, and the resolution will go that way to the city council.
Okay, based on that, I move that the Board of Adjustment approve, this, request for a special exemption, subject to the, conditions that were enumerated, both in the agenda and in the presentation. I think that does it. That's everything. Okay. Move the place. I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for coming to the city.
It wasn't as hard as you thought it was it?
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, we appreciate you respecting the city. Oh, yeah. Motion to adjourn? Yep.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.